The story begins in a tense, overcast morning in the heart of a small southern town. Angela Brooks, a black woman in her late 30s, walks into the county courthouse dressed in a plain blazer and dress. Her posture is strong, but her eyes carry the weight of fear and frustration. A single mother and a respected community activist, Angela has never been in serious trouble with the law until now. She's been accused of welfare fraud, a charge that seems blown wildly out of proportion. In reality, the accusation is based on a clerical error involving financial aid she received for her disabled son. Inside the courtroom, the air is heavy. The judge presiding over the case is Hafford Crane, a white man in his 60s, known for his old-school views and reputation for harsh, biased rulings, particularly against minorities and the poor. He served on the bench for over 2 decades and has grown arrogant with power, often talking down to defendants who don't fit his ideal image of obedience and deference. Angela's public defender, Carla Reyes, is a passionate and brilliant young Latina lawyer fresh out of law school. Though she lacks courtroom experience, she believes fiercely in her client's innocence and the need to fight back against judicial abuse. This case is personal for her. She's seen her own family mistreated by the system, and she knows the signs of injustice all too well. As the trial begins, Judge Crane wastes no time making his disdain clear. His tone is cold and dismissive, his eyes sharp with condescension. When Angela tries to speak, he cuts her off mid-sentence. "Speak only when spoken to, Ms. Brooks," he snaps. This is a court of law, not a street corner. The insult is subtle, but everyone in the courtroom hears the implication. Murmurs ripple through the gallery. Carla objects, reminding the judge that Angela has the right to speak in her defense. Crane overrules her with a scowl. "I'll decide what's relevant," he barks. Not some fresh-faced activist in a suit. It's not the first time he's insulted Carla during proceedings, calling her naive, emotional, and once suggesting she learn the law before pretending to practice it. The prosecution, clearly favored by the judge, presents circumstantial evidence. No proof of intentional fraud. No criminal record. No motive. But Crane seems uninterested in nuance. He leans back in his chair, arms folded, as if the outcome has already been decided. Angela's teenage son watches from the gallery, gripping his backpack tightly. His eyes move between his mother and the judge, confusion and anger mixing on his face. Tension builds with every exchange. Angela tries once more to explain her side, her voice steady but emotional. "Your Honor, I've done nothing wrong." "Enough!" Judge Crane bellows, slamming his gavel. "Know your place, Ms. Brooks. You people think you're above the law." Gasps echo around the room. The words hang in the air like poison. Just as Crane lifts his gavel to deliver a rushed verdict, the heavy courtroom doors creak open behind him. Everyone turns. And in walks the unexpected. Judge Hafford Crane leans forward in his chair, clearly savoring the control he holds over the courtroom. His eyes remain fixed on Angela Brooks, who stands trembling yet defiant at the defendant's table. Her lawyer, Carla Reyes, is visibly tense, trying to contain both her anger and her fear. They both know this trial isn't about justice anymore. It's about power. As the prosecution finishes presenting its weak, circumstantial evidence, Carla stands and calmly begins her defense. She points out that Angela's so-called fraud stems from a misfiled document, an honest mistake made while applying for benefits to care for her special needs son. Angela even reported the error herself once she realized it. No money was stolen and no harm was done. But Judge Crane interrupts Carla multiple times, rolling his eyes, sighing exaggeratedly, and at one point saying, "This is what happens when you let feelings get in the way of facts." Carla objects to the judge's tone and treatment of the defendant. She formally asks the court to recognize the judge's bias and requests a mistrial. Crane laughs. A mistrial? Because your client doesn't like hearing the truth? His voice echoes throughout the room, dripping with contempt. Then, turning to Angela, he says, "You're lucky you're getting a trial at all. People like you ought to be grateful you live in a country where we even pretend to listen." Angela's son gasps from the gallery. Reporters whisper, their pens scribbling rapidly. The judge's remarks are no longer just biased there. Offensive, overtly racist, and completely unprofessional. Carla tries to argue again, but Judge Crane threatens her with contempt of court. "If you speak out of turn one more time, young lady, I'll have you removed. Don't test me." The prosecutor, clearly aligned with the judge, says nothing. He stands silently, arms folded, letting the scene play out. Angela, swallowing her pride and anger, tries to speak on her own behalf. "Your Honor, I am a mother. I work 2 jobs. I volunteer at the youth center. I've never broken the law. Please, this is not fair." Judge Crane glares at her. "I don't want to hear." Another sob story. "You're all the same. You lie, you cheat, and when you get caught, you cry racism." It's pathetic. The courtroom falls silent. His words are like knives, slicing through any illusion of fairness or neutrality. Carla looks at Angela with a mix of fury and helplessness. Knowing that no legal argument is going to save them from this man's wrath, today, Judge Crane straightens in his seat, ready to read the verdict. In light of this testimony and the complete lack of remorse shown by the defendant, I find, but before he can utter the next word, the courtroom doors burst open. 2 FBI agents stride into the room in tailored suits, badges held high. Everyone turns in shock. The judge looks startled, his eyes narrowing. The lead agent speaks, his voice calm and commanding. "Your Honor, we need to speak with you immediately. We have a warrant." The room is frozen in disbelief. Judge Crane's face drains of color. Angela, Carla, and the entire courtroom stare in stunned silence as the tide begins to turn. The atmosphere in the courtroom shifts instantly. For a long moment, everything is frozen in place. No one moves. No one speaks. Judge Crane's gavel remains mid-air, his mouth half open, caught in the act of delivering his final judgment against Angela Brooks. But now, all eyes are on the 2 strangers walking down the aisle. They're unmistakably federal agents' sharp suits, no-nonsense expressions, and flashing badges held firmly at chest level. Their presence cuts through the thick tension like a knife. Whispers ripple through the gallery. Journalists sit up straighter. Carla Reyes's eyes widen, stunned. Even Angela, who had nearly given up hope, turns her head slowly, unsure if this is a dream or some kind of divine intervention. The lead agent steps forward. "Judge Hafford Crane," he says, his voice carrying the calm authority of someone who knows he holds all the power in the room now. "We're with the Federal Bureau of Investigation. We have a warrant for your arrest." Gasps erupt around the room. The court clerk drops a pen. Someone's phone clatters to the floor. Judge Crane's entire demeanor changes. Gone is the smug arrogance. His face twitches in confusion and disbelief. "This is outrageous," he snaps. "You can't walk into my courtroom and interrupt proceedings." The second agent steps forward and cuts him off, holding up a folded document. "Here is the federal warrant, signed by a district magistrate. You are being placed under arrest for obstruction of justice, abuse of power, and conspiracy to commit judicial fraud." Judge Crane stares at the paper like it's a foreign language. "This is absurd. Who put you up to this? That girl?" He points angrily toward Carla. "Or this manipulative defendant trying to play the race card?" The lead agent doesn't flinch. "You've been under investigation for over a year. Judge Crane, we've gathered evidence of racially motivated sentencing. backdoor financial deals with private prisons, and coercion of public defenders. We have whistleblower testimony, email, records, and surveillance footage. Carla's jaw drops. She realizes now that her formal complaint submitted quietly 6 months ago had not been ignored. It had been the match that lit the fire. Somewhere inside she feels vindicated, but she doesn't speak. Not yet. Angela clutches the edge of the table. The tide that had been pushing her under is suddenly pulling her back up. Her son, sitting quietly in the back row, stands with wide eyes, watching the agents approach the man who humiliated his mother. The judge stands, but doesn't resist as the second agent approaches and calmly reads him his rights. He sputters, tries to object, but his voice is lost in the storm of murmurs. Whispers and snapping cameras dot as handcuffs click shut around Judge Crane's wrists. The courtroom sees something they never expected. The mighty brought low by Justice Angela exhales deeply for the first time that day. Carla places a hand on her client's shoulder, nodding slowly. "This isn't over," Crane hisses as he's led away. But no one listens. The courtroom watches in stunned silence as the judge is escorted out the doors, this time not in power, but in disgrace. As Judge Hafford Crane is led out of the courtroom in handcuffs, the room remains in stunned silence. Everyone, attorneys, court staff, onlookers, has witnessed something almost unthinkable. A sitting judge, known for decades of unchecked authority, being arrested in the very courtroom he ruled with an iron fist. For a few seconds, it feels like time has stopped. Angela Brooks sits frozen in place, her hands still clutched tightly on the defense table. Her face is a mix of disbelief and raw emotion. Her teenage son looks at her with wide eyes, as if seeing his mother in a new light, not as someone broken by the system, but as someone standing tall despite it. Then the lead FBI agent special, Agent Monroe, steps forward to address the court. His voice is steady and clear. "Ladies and gentlemen, we apologize for the disruption, but this arrest was authorized and necessary. Judge Crane has been the subject of a sealed federal investigation for over a year. Today, we are unsealing part of that case." He turns to the court clerk and hands over documents to be entered into public record. Judge Crane is being charged with abuse of power, bribery, obstruction of justice, and civil rights violations. The evidence includes detailed sentencing, records that show a disturbing pattern. Black and Latino defendants were sentenced to disproportionately harsh penalties, often for minor offenses. In some cases, he overruled juries or pressured public defenders into pushing guilty pleas. The gallery stirs in disbelief. Carla Reyes' eyes widen with realization. This was bigger than she imagined. Special Agent Monroe continues. In addition, we have uncovered email communications and financial records indicating that Judge Crane received kickbacks from private prison contractors in exchange for filling bed quotas, effectively profiting from mass incarceration. Angela covers her mouth in shock. The very man who ridiculed her and others like her had been enriching himself by sending people to prison. Innocent people, poor people, people of color. The courtroom buzzes with emotion, some angry, others weeping quietly. Reporters rush to get the details out to their networks. Phones light up. Twitter and live blogs explode with headlines like, "Judge arrested for racist sentencing scheme and FBI confirms years of judicial corruption." Agent Monroe gives a nod to Carla. "Ms. Reyes, your formal complaint helped trigger this investigation. Your persistence and the bravery of whistleblowers brought this to light. The Bureau thanks you." Carla swallows hard, trying to keep her emotions in check. She never expected justice to actually be served, not like this, not so publicly. Angela turns to her lawyer with tears in her eyes. "You believed me when no one else did," she says softly, as the agents prepare to leave with their prisoner. The judge's former power shattered. They promised to begin reviewing every case he ever presided over, especially those involving vulnerable or minority defendants. For Angela, the nightmare isn't over, but the darkness has cracked. A light has broken through. For the first time in a long while, justice doesn't feel like a word. It feels like something real. The courthouse is in chaos. The moment Judge Crane is escorted out in handcuffs, the crowd erupts in hushed murmurs and stunned conversations. People quickly pour into the hallways, phones buzzing with calls and social media updates. The video of Crane's arrest spreads online within minutes. News vans arrive outside the courthouse before the hour ends. Inside, Angela Brooks remains seated, still processing what just happened. A moment ago, she stood on the edge of being convicted by a biased system. Now, the man trying to condemn her has been exposed as a fraud, a criminal, and a racist. Her son rushes down from the gallery, throws his arms around her, and holds her tight. She's shaken but upright. In this moment, dignity replaces fear. Carla Reyes walks over to the bench, her voice firm. "Your Honor," she says to the substitute judge who has now taken the seat, "we request that all charges against Ms. Brooks be immediately dropped." The new judge, still reviewing the FBI's documents, nods. "Case dismissed with prejudice," he announces. Angela is free. The courtroom claps quietly, not out of celebration, but respect. Outside, Angela is swarmed by reporters. Microphones thrust forward. "Ms. Brooks, how do you feel? Did you know the judge was under investigation? What will you do?" Next, she doesn't answer immediately. Carla shields her as they walk toward the courthouse steps. Finally, Angela turns to the cameras. Her voice is calm but heavy with meaning. "I stood in that courtroom and felt invisible. Like my voice didn't matter. Today, we were heard. Today, justice showed up late, but not silent." That quote becomes the headline. Justice showed up late, but not silent. Over the next few days, the story becomes national news. Civil rights activists and legal watchdogs call it a landmark moment. More and more people come forward, revealing their own horror stories from Judge Crane's courtroom. Families share how they lost years to his unjust rulings. Lawyers who once stayed silent for fear of retaliation now speak out. Emboldened by the judge's arrest, Carla Reyes becomes a visible figure in media interviews. She doesn't take personal credit but emphasizes the systemic problem. This isn't just about one man. It's about every system that allowed him to thrive unchecked. Angela is invited to speak at legal conferences, town halls, and even on national television. She uses her platform not for vengeance, but for reform. She calls for accountability in the judiciary, independent oversight, and better legal access for the poor. Meanwhile, the Department of Justice launches a review of all Crane's cases. Early findings show a pattern of racist language in transcripts, suspicious sentencing patterns, and illegal coordination with prosecutors. Several of his convictions are overturned. Angela's courage and Carla's determination become symbols of hope and of resistance. Communities begin organizing for broader reforms. Bill proposals emerge to audit judges, ban private prison contracts, and fund better legal defense systems. Angela returns home to her community as not just a survivor, but a symbol. She was nearly broken by the system, but now she stands at the heart of a movement. Weeks have passed since the dramatic courtroom arrest of Judge Hafford Crane, but the impact continues to ripple through the country. What began as a local trial has ignited a national conversation about judicial bias, systemic racism, and the abuse of legal power. The once invisible injustices buried behind courtroom walls are now spotlighted for all to see. Angela Brooks has returned home, But her life is forever changed. She is no longer seen as just a defendant or a victim. She is a face of resilience, someone who stood up to the system and survived. She still lives in the same modest neighborhood, but now everywhere. She goes, people stop her. Some thank her. Others cry in her arms. Many share their own stories of injustice, abuse, and being silenced. Rather than retreat into private life, Angela uses her voice to push forward. With the help of community leaders and donations pouring in from across the country, she launches the Brooks Foundation for Legal Equity, a nonprofit organization that provides legal aid, advocacy, and mentorship to underserved communities. She partners with Carla Reyes and other civil rights attorneys to create workshops that teach citizens their rights and how to demand fair treatment in courtrooms across the nation. Carla, once dismissed as a naive public defender by Crane, is now recognized as a bold and capable leader. She receives job offers from prestigious law firms, academic institutions, and government commissions, but she turns them all down. Instead, she joins Angela full-time, helping expand the foundation's legal reach. She also testifies before Congress on the need for judicial accountability and transparency. Meanwhile, the Department of Justice's investigation continues to shake the legal establishment. Over 100 of Judge Crane's past cases are reopened. Dozens of convictions are overturned, and several other judges previously protected by silence in politics are placed under review. A new bill, called the Judicial Fairness and Oversight Act, gains traction in Congress, aiming to create an independent body to investigate judicial misconduct nationwide. News outlets continue to follow the story. Documentaries, podcasts, and in-depth features explore Angela's journey and how one courtroom moment became a turning point in the fight for justice. She is invited to speak at universities, law schools, and community centers, where she shares her experience not with bitterness, but with purpose. The final scene unfolds 1 year later, back at the same courthouse where it all began. The building has been renovated, and the courtroom where Crane once presided is now used for community events and legal education. A crowd gathers outside for the unveiling of a mural painted on the courthouse wall. The artwork shows Angela standing tall with her son at her side, Carla beside her, and a background of dozens of faces, black, brown, young, and old, symbolizing all those silenced by injustice. Above their heads, bold letters read, "Truth is power, silence is surrender." Angela steps forward to speak. "This isn't just my story, it's our story, and the story is far from over. But today, we turn the page together." The crowd erupts in applause. Justice didn't come easily, it came late. But it came because one woman refused to be silent, and the world finally listened.